This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Pod, this week in review of April 9th, 2022. We've got a three-person episode yet again. Back to the show is Ryan. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
It's an awkward delay there, buddy. Come on. You're a professional at this point. Got right on there. Let's go.
He had to think about his response.
Yes.
Sure.
He's back fresh from a long weekend, not this weekend, but a long weekend previously, running around Disney World in some of their marathons. It was good times. He's come on to share his experiences down there, and Phil brought him on. Not that we need a reason to bring Ryan on, but Phil noticed that Ryan says, I just got back and I have some things to talk about. So I don't know what those are, so this should be an interesting show. But Phil grabbed him and made sure he came on this evening to record. And before the show,
he got on any other podcast,
of course.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good time to Phil have like another trip report because Ryan, tell me if I'm wrong with the general sense of like Diz Twitter and the various Facebook or forums that you might go on that there's like kind of a malaise, right? Of Disney at this point. Yes, the parks are packed, right? People are still going. This is not one of those type of things, but this is for Diz veterans, right? Disney veterans, and it feels like we're in a malaise, but we're on a precipice of like going back to normal. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, obviously, social media tends to be negative overall, but I feel like it's, in terms of Disney World right now, especially with the veterans, it's sort of at a kind of a peak moment where it's like overly negative in many ways, especially when it comes to, the Genie Plus and all that kind of stuff. It's just there's really not many positives that have been said lately.
Okay, so you're agreeing with my mood. I have more comments, but first, Phil, you had an excellent question, and I screwed up the cold open. Like we were supposed to have like this whole conversation, and it's a good one. Why don't you ask it so I don't screw it up at this point?
Sure. So for those of you who are into either 90s pop music or professional wrestling, there was a big celebrity wedding over the weekend where Ryan Cabrera got married to Alexa Bliss from the WWE. I know for a fact she's a huge Disney fan, and so there are lots of Disney touches throughout it, but one of the things was their bridal party when they walked down the aisle to enter the church, the ceremony area, I think it was outside, they came down to Eye to Eye from a Goofy movie. Was the song that they entered the ceremony to. And so it got me thinking that, if you were going to get married now or if Ryan ever gets married or whatever, what Disney song would you pick to have your wedding party walk down the aisle to?
So for me, this is an easy one for me, Phil. I think I think it has to be A Whole New World is what you walk down, right? That's one of my favorite songs to begin with, and then I try singing it to my daughter because it gets her embarrassed because it was like the first like love scene that she's ever seen as a kid, right? But I'm like, this would be great to play at her wedding for her and I could dance to. But I'm like, that would be completely inappropriate for me and my daughter to dance to. So I'd be like, okay, if my wife and I ever like renew our vows, do one of those type of things, I think that would be kind of cool. What about you, Phil?
So I kind of had a list, of course.
All right, prepared. The man is prepared.
I did. But a few of the songs from Tangled, I think, I feel like I always pick I See the Light as like my favorite Disney song for like anything. Okay. And I think that would actually fit. I also think When Will My Life Begin could fit. Then I thought from Tarzan, the opening song, Two Worlds, One Family.
Worst soundtrack of any Disney movie, right? He doesn't watch this podcast, does he? It's a joke. It's a Discord joke. Sorry, guys. I'm not saying Tarzan is the word. No, this is just a joke from Discord. Sorry, go ahead.
And there's also a really nice song from my favorite animated movie, Robin Hood, called Love, that I think is really nice and sweet. So those are the ones I came up with.
Ryan, since we just kind of bombarded you with this question, anything come to mind or?
Well, I think my first thought is something from The Lion King, maybe Can You Feel the Love Tonight, or something from, because Lion King's my favorite Disney animated film, so I'm drawn to that.
See, like, Can You Feel the Love Tonight be like an awesome song, I think, to do like the first dance with.
Yeah.
I took it like walking down the aisle aspect. Like you're literally that moment. I mean, I think Phil, you're both of you guys excellent songs, but I think those are, for me personally, I think I would choose those to be like the first song you dance to type of thing, rather than marching down the aisle. Yeah. Then again, I don't know if Whole New World's a good song to be going down the aisle to. So what do I know? I got married once. I'm never doing it again because I love my wife, and that was not fun organizing that whole thing. Anyway, no DCI update this week, Phil. I haven't looked, but you wrote no.
I looked earlier this morning and it hadn't changed. So,
I want to give a shout out to Matt. I'm listening to his backlog of his podcast. Happily Everything. What I can never get his name of his. Phil, what is it?
Happily Everything Disney.
Thank you. Those guys are really hitting their stride. So if you're looking for a new Disney podcast to enter into your rotation, that's certainly one that you guys should check out.
And we were talking about negativity. I think their podcast leans very positive.
Extremely
positive. The last episode, I joked with Matt that like Disney should just use that podcast as like a commercial. It was like, here's everything great about Disney and why, all these memories with my kids and everything. And I'm like crying listening to this podcast. And
Well, I listened to their second to last episode about their grievances, and even all their grievances are like all awesome things about Disney.
Yeah.
So that being said, let's hop back into your story, Ryan. So you were down. Well, actually, in case there's people that are not on Discord listening, and there are quite a few. Who are you, and what is your connection with Disney? Because I know you've got a professional side, and then you've got the thing that you do quite a bit during the year.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, I've obviously been going to Disney for quite a long time, but I am a travel agent, so that is kind of a big part of my life on a professional side. Not my only job by any means, but I do focus on Disney travel, and it's obviously a passion of mine. And outside of that, then in my personal enjoyment time or spare time, I do a lot of running, and Run Disney is a big thing. So I get down to do as many of those events as I possibly can, and that's what kind of spurred this trip. They had a new, it's a rebranding of a former run weekend, but so it's kind of it's an inaugural event, but taking place of an old one. So
my question is trip reports can be both amazing and boring at the same time, depending on how jealous people are that you're actually going down and they're not going down at that point. So the purpose of the trip is obviously a race. And before the show, you said you went down on a Thursday, you came back on a Tuesday. What days were the races, and how many extra days did you stay?
So for this one, this weekend was kind of unique in that it was essentially a throwback weekend. They brought back races that no longer exist. So years ago, they ran what they called the Expedition Everest 5K and scavenger hunt. So it was usually held in May, and it was just a standalone race, just the one. Like now, most of the race weekends are 3 or 4 events in one weekend, whereas so this one, back when it was held, it was just this 5K, and I believe it ended in 2016, maybe 2017, right around there. So it's been going on for a while now. So they brought that back. Then they brought back what they call the Race for the Taste 10K, which is what became now what is a Wine and Dine weekend, which is held in early November. And then they brought back the Tower of Terror 10 miler, which was normally held just before Halloween in October. And so the unique thing about back when the 10 miler was held, it was nighttime as well. But both the Everest 5K and 10 miler were typically nighttime races, whereas then every other Run Disney race is held really early in the morning. But only for this weekend, the only nighttime race was the 5K for the Everest. But because of this weekend, they structured it in that the 5K was on Thursday night, then there was no races on Friday, and then the 10K was Saturday, and the 10 miler was Sunday. Ooh. Typically on a Run Disney weekend, you have everything's back to back. So it's usually for a normal weekend, you got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or for a marathon weekend, you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So this one was a little unique in that respect.
Let me ask you this: I didn't know they did like 10Ks and these 10-miler type. How does it? Are you just really just running the whole race, or they're breaking it up into groups throughout the day? How does it usually work at Disney?
So, for the way Run Disney operates is everything. Normally, like I said, everything's in the morning, but it's basically the same for the night race too. But you have, depending on the size of the race, there's start groups. So the race starts at, say, for a morning race, typically 5 a.m. is when they start the morning races. But you may not start until, say, 6 a.m., depending on when your start group goes off. But everybody is usually out within an hour and a half. So it's just staggered groups that you're going in.
But my question is, are you running the whole race? Like, because like the 10-miler seems like that's a long run. I mean, like I'm not a runner, right? You're the runner. So I mean, I can do a 5K and feel good about myself, and then want to stop running. But I guess
10-miler is just a warm up for Ryan.
I guess, right? I don't know the mentality of runners. Like I've never got that. But how long is a 10-miler then for you? Is that like a 20 I don't know, what is that, like a 30, 40-minute race, an hour?
No. So
I have no idea.
Usually, I mean, for Run Disney, it's hard to kind of say because the big thing about running a Run Disney race is there's stuff on course to do. So they have character stops during the race. So you may see, Chippendale, or the big one for the 10-miler was Perry the Platypus was out, which is I've never seen in my life out for anything. So that was, a big character stop. So there's I'd say every mile to a mile and a half, there's typically some sort of, whether it's a character or a band or some sort of, thing on the course.
Sometimes they have like old ride vehicles. And
Yep.
They have the Nautilus from like 20,000.
You just stop and you hang out for a little bit and then continue on? Is that what you're doing?
You basically stop and taking a photo and continuing on.
That's awesome. Now, see, I could do that. Give me some breaks every mile or so. I can handle that. I'm a big guy. Like I'm in okay shape, but running has never been my thing. That's see, now I understand why your Twitter feed is like I'm on a race and it's just Ryan posing with characters like on his Twitter feed like every hour or so. I'm like, now I get it. Okay, this is good. Okay, so you said that something was unique. It was like, so you did a race on a Thursday, then you had Friday off, and then you had a Saturday and Sunday. So what are you doing on that Friday? So what's your mentality there?
Well, so this was something new that kind of I'd never had to. So the 5K was actually due to severe weather that was coming into the area. They actually kind of cut everything short. There was a 5K afterwards, a scavenger hunt component to the Expedition Everest 5K. Well, they basically they took a little bit off the end of the course and they cut out the scavenger hunt because of the severe weather threat to get everybody out of there. So that kind of washed that out. So I'd say we got done just before midnight, depending on when you finish the race. So we were pretty much out of there, back to the hotel around midnight. So then I didn't necessarily sleep in, but me and a few friends, we went over to Universal for the morning and actually went over there and did some stuff over there. And then probably midday, 1, maybe 2 o'clock, we headed back and I went to Epcot for the evening. But you couldn't see, and then with that, you can't stay out too late because I had to get up at 2 a.m. for a race the next morning. So
yeah, makes sense. Okay, so let's pause. Let's go more of a larger topic point. You mentioned Universal. So where do you stand on the Disney versus Universal with Orlando? With Epic Universe coming, there's plenty of people in the Disney universe, whether they're vloggers or podcasters or just prominent community members on message boards, whatever, maybe not so prominent, whatever. But they're saying like, Universal is close to getting a leg up on Disney. They're opening up this giant park. It's going to be their first park that they've ever opened that's basically all their lessons learned since Harry Potter, right? So it's expected to be a monster of a property, and a lot of people are saying, and truthfully so, that Disney's kind of resting on its laurels as it's been doing for 50 years, and they've never had an issue with that, right? Because they've always been on top. So where do you stand now on that topic? Is Universal going to be more and more part of your Orlando trips, or is this just kind of you're just checking out Universal because you're down there quite a bit throughout the year?
I guess a bit of both. I am a Universal annual pass holder, so I go as much as I can.
But here, let me preface the question again. Obviously, you have a massive love for Disney, right? You started off the podcast saying that you enjoy Universal, right? It's fun. They have a lot of great attractions. There's nothing wrong with Universal, but I think anybody that's in our community doesn't have the passion equality, right? Like there's passion for Disney, but there might not be passion for Universal. So like, where do you stand on that metric moving forward? It's just from, not to interrupt. I'm sorry. I did, but
I don't think you're just based on, you kind of have that nostalgia factor. I've been going to Disney since I was 8 months old. So before I even remember going to Disney. So Disney's always going to be that, that part of me that you can't really take away. But I think Universal going forward, especially with the new park, is always going to be something that I'm drawn to at least go, maybe not every time I'm in Orlando, but at least, once or twice a year, depending on how often I do go down to Florida.
So Phil, you for the first time, maybe it wasn't the first time, but it was a major consideration of yours to do the split stay that you did, your last big trip down there, right? Yep. So is Universal do you think Universal is going to catch up to Disney? Because this is what they need to do. They have great attractions, right? They have some great IPs, but what they don't do, I've never been to Universal, so but from what you never hear about their music, you never hear about the sounds, and you never hear about the smells of Universal, right? Unless it's a negative thing, right? There's no one talking about what's the comparison for walking past pirates and smelling the water wafting in from that attraction that's in Universal, right? It's all, to me, Universal's all surface level entertainment. It's great coasters, great attractions, and great immersion with the Harry Potter. Are they going to make that swap, Phil, do you think? How are you feeling on that?
I think they're starting to get there. You definitely have that with the Harry Potter stuff. I think you see now as people who maybe started going there when they were younger, they're nostalgic for the Harry Potter areas, and everyone, there's big debates about which type of butterbeer is the best and stuff like that. So I think there is that deeper connection to the Harry Potter areas, and you're starting to get some of that, I think, with Jurassic Park and some other things. But yeah, I think the new park's really going to show if they can pull that off for an entire park, I think, because you still, as much as I enjoyed our time at Universal, you still felt like, you can see a lot of the other lands from each land. You're not as immersed, I think, other than maybe, the Harry Potter stuff. So I don't know. I think it'll really be interesting to see over time what happens. Cause we've had, Christy, who was on our show, she's been taking her kids since they were little to Universal. And sometimes when you ask, where do you want to go, Disney or Universal, they say Universal, and they're still small. So it's, some people I think have that nostalgic feeling for it. I know we found that once we got back to Disney, it kind of was okay, yeah, I think we're a Disney family still, but we still enjoyed our time at Universal a lot. So, we'll have to see how that plays out going forward. We definitely want to go back to Universal, but I don't think we'll switch over to Universal and stop going to Disney.
I don't think anybody here is going to stop going to Disney, right? I don't think that happens. What I'm interested in seeing is, because I'm not bringing my kids to Universal at this point. Just my kids aren't old enough to enjoy a lot of the coasters. I would love to go, right? But it just doesn't make sense for the age of my children. But my point being is I'm interested to see with Epic Universe as it's coming online. People don't. When people talk about going to Universal, they talk about going to Harry Potter for the most part, or the Jurassic Park area, right? The two parts that you mentioned. Yeah. They're not talking about going to Universal. They're talking about seeing Harry Potter and Jurassic Park. So it's kind of the idea of those two things are split. It's it has its own identity. If you weren't talking to somebody that knew that Harry Potter was at a Universal Studios, then you'd think it's its own separate entity, I think, for the most part, if you didn't know where all those things were. I'm curious to see if Universal has learned those lessons, and then in 5 to 10 years, let's say 10 years from now, is a split stay between Disney and Universal the normal thing? And then to Ryan, to your point, as a travel agent, are you going to start seeing people doing that split stay, and then there's a business element out of that?
Yeah.
Building between the transfer, the holding over, maybe you're booking a hotel in between, so you're staying at 3 different. I don't know how it equates, or where you can find a business model where you can make some extra dollars organizing that outside of the normal travel agency type of stuff. Because if they do a good job, there's going to be there's nothing like Disney down in Orlando. It's a bunch of amusement parks and a theme park, and I think with Harry Potter, I can't call that a theme park because it's themed land, right? But it's not a whole park. I think Epic Universe is going to be that park, and I'm curious to see how that goes. Okay, so let's move forward. So you're not, Ryan, you're not really diving deep into the parks when you're on one of these trips because you're running, you're tired, you're catching a couple attractions here and there that you can when you have time. So when you were down there, because I want to talk about this because I always bring this up with Matt Pato when I like poking him at this. Do you use Genie Plus when you're down there, or Lightning Lanes or any of that stuff?
So I did contemplate getting Genie Plus for Magic Kingdom Day, which was actually after the races, so it would have made more sense in terms because I would have had essentially a full day to use it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. I did end up buying 2 individual Lightning Lanes, though. So for my Studios Day, I bought Rise of the Resistance, and then for my Animal Kingdom Day, I bought Flight of Passage. Well, those are the only 2 things I bought.
I have to say it's easy because you're up 4 hours before the actual time, so you have plenty of time to prepare for that. When you're talking to people that you're helping plan vacations with as a travel agent, are you recommending Genie Plus at this point?
So no, I do not push Genie Plus. I do offer it as an option. I explain here. This is what this is an option. It's an additional cost. This is what it does. But I don't say, this is something you need to get or, need to have a better vacation type thing.
I like, Phil, you like to talk about, or we both like to talk about the Walt Disney World is Awesome podcast, guys. Yeah. For those that don't know, it's a podcast, a bunch of guys from, they're up by your area, right? They're in Wisconsin?
Or Ohio.
Or Minnesota.
Minnesota. Minnesota, I think
Excuse
is what
me.
it is. Yep.
Your neighbor up there in the Midwest, Ryan. And they're a group of guys. They love Disney. They're very knowledgeable, but they're also kind of like not knowledgeable. And I don't want to call them out because they get like little tiny things, like as many mistakes as I make, they make them too. But I don't notice my mistakes, but I notice theirs, right? So
well, I'm sure everyone notices our mistakes.
Exactly, right? No one's perfect, but it's funny. They're huge proponents of Genie Plus, right? And they're all more recent Disney fans. I think some of them, their first adult trips like 2018, 2019 type of thing. Yeah. And I always find that there's no wrong answer to this, right? Because to me, it comes down to like kind of a money thing. So Ryan, from your point of view, the individual Lightning I think is worth it because you're just paying for yourself, right? You're not paying for a wife and 3 kids, or you and your wife are not paying for your 3 kids. I'm not trying to be, misogynist here. Like the man has all the money, right? But like when you do that, obviously you've bought 2. You're definitely feeling like you've got your money's worth out of those things, right?
Yep. And my last trip too in January, I did this. I only bought 1 individual Lightning Link. So I feel like for me, and I've used Genie Plus before. I back kind of right after it debuted in November of last year. So I have experience with it, and I just didn't find it to be worth it for the way I tour the parks. So that's where I find the individual Lightning Lanes, when I want to use them, is where I'm going to be spending my money.
Well, let's break it down because I like the details of how, because Phil and I talk about like I love the dining plan. It feels like that's not for me how I eat, and I'm like, okay, well I love the dining plan because of this reason. Or people say I don't like to rope drop because of the way I tour the parks, and I was like I love rope dropping because of this way. But no one defines ever how they tour the parks. So Ryan, how do you define what is your how do you do the parks? And what makes it worthwhile or not worthwhile to you? What does that mean to you? Like, how do you do the parks?
So, well, I think it's for a lot of the times I go, I'm running races while I'm there. So like January when I was there, and then this trip, they were both race weekends. So they're different in that I'm not spending full days in the parks. I'll spend some time, but then I'm I'm either taking a nap or I'm heading back early. I'm not in the parks all day where Genie Plus is going to really make sense for me to get my money's worth out of. So that's where if I'm going to spend any money, it's going to be an individual Lightning Lane, because then I can just do that one ride and then head out or something like that.
Well, let's pretend that you're just down there for a week, right? Whatever, pick amount of days. But this is just vacation. You're not racing. Mm-hmm. You're there to do rope drop if you want it and leave at close if you want to. Does Genie Plus match your tempo for the way you want to do the parks?
So in that case,
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that question for the discussion board. If you're there, forget about Fast Pass Plus, forget about Genie Plus. I'm Ryan. What does my day at the parks look like? Are you getting there at open? Are you going close? Like, are you just wandering around the parks? Do you have a plan? Like, how do you do the parks?
So if in a typical vacation, I guess I'm an open to close kind of person. So I would be there, I take advantage of my early 30 minutes from my resort stay or whatever, and utilize that, and then spend the whole day ending with fireworks and, go back to so I'm an open to close kind of guy. And then mixing in with that, I think, continue, talking about Genie Plus, the only way I would add in Genie Plus to a vacation like that would be at a park like Magic Kingdom. I don't think I would buy it for Animal Kingdom, Epcot, or even Studios at this point. I have used it at Studios and Magic Kingdom, and out of those two, I would only buy it for Magic Kingdom again.
All right, Phil, let's imagine that you are a single man, right? Or you escaped your family somehow, and you're down in Disney World all by yourself, like Mr. Ryan over here. How would you imagine yourself touring the parks as a solo traveler? I think this is a good topic. I mean, we're halfway through the podcast at this point. This is my genius idea right now. How would you do the parks by yourself?
So let's see. So I have gone down on solo trips, although I was meeting people there. So, you kind of had to schedule around meetups and stuff like that. But
that doesn't count, though.
Yeah. So I think I would go early, because I still think there's benefits to rope dropping, and especially if I was staying on property and you have the early entry. Like I feel like if I'm going, I'm still trying to maximize the rides I get on, because I'm still, this is assuming I'm not going down very regularly. If I'm only going once a year or less than that, I'm going to try to maximize how many rides I can get on.
Let me lay out a scenario, Phil, to help to kind of frame your thought process.
Okay.
You're going down on a Wednesday afternoon. Thursday and Friday, you had client meetings. You had a convention that you're going to. Fit whatever works with your line of work. And then mid-Friday afternoon, you're done, and you're going home on a Monday. So you've got Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. You're same as now. You go you just went 3 months ago with your family, whatever, right? So it's Saturday. You're a selfish man. You want to have some fun, and you're going to Epcot or the Magic Kingdom. You pick your park. How are you rocking that park? Are you going rope drop to close? Are you doing Genie Plus? Are you going from attraction to attraction like a madman? Or do you set I want to get some achievements here. I want to ride on every single ride in this park in a single day. Like, are you trying to challenge? Like, how are you setting up your day?
That's an interesting question, if I'd set up any challenges or anything. I mean, I think at a high level, I would still try. I don't know what I'd do Friday. Probably Friday night, I'd still just chill. I'd go over to Trader Sam's or something like that. And then just do the 2 full days. And I'd probably go early and then take a break midday, either to go back to the resort or go do something else, and then be there.
Okay, well, pause. Yeah. What are you breaking for? Like, where are you going to break? Like, you're by yourself. Are you going back to the hotel taking a nap? Or are you going to get some food somewhere? Are you walking around Disney Springs? Are you going to the pool by yourself and swimming? Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have your family, so it's like, what are you doing? I'm curious.
I'm curious too. I'm trying to think about what I would do.
Well, here, because I put something. So think about what you would do for your break. Yeah. I personally, this is the way I would probably do the parks, right? I'm there by myself. I'm guilt-free, right? Like, I'm down there for business. Maybe I drove 3 hours from I was just down in Atlanta for business, and I was thinking, if I drove for 7 hours or 6 or however long it is, I could get to Disney World, but of course I didn't. I would get to the park. I would open the parks. I would get there as early as possible, just in case they open the parks early for you. And I would hit up all my favorites in Adventureland. and then I would take the park as it is. I would actually not do any if I'm there for 2 days. I would say I'm talking Magic Kingdom at this point. I would probably slow down. I'd probably get a lunch, find a bench somewhere, and just like listen to the music and the ambiance and just relax. The second day I'm there, and I'm there morning because I'm not leaving. Right, this is the one time I get to like soak in everything and not have like kids like, oh, I want to go do this, or a wife saying, oh, I'm getting tired, or anything else like this. And then the second day, I'd probably do a challenge. I'd probably look up like what are people that's nearly impossible to do. I'm like, I'm doing this. We're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna do it. That's what I would do. Like I'm not stop. I'm like one day I'll go and one day kind of chilling, but in the parks. Did I give you time to think about what you would do in that half?
Yeah, I mean,
break?
I still think I probably would still come back and take a nap. I'd probably do some dining thing. Maybe I'd go to Disney Springs or something.
Okay.
I think I'd probably try to look into something like a tour, because then I'm only paying for myself. So whether it's some behind the scene like Keys to the Kingdom or just like one of the tours over at Animal Kingdom,
God, that's a good
something
idea.
like that. I think I would do to like. I feel like I wouldn't. I'd still want to maximize like the rides that I want to get on, but I'd also want to do some different things, like things that I can't do. Like maybe I'd do the tequila tasting over in La Cava or something like that. Something that's harder to do when you have kids. And I don't have the spreadsheet ready to like name all these.
I have a mental list because I just listened to Phil, what he would do. I'm like, that is such a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? That's such a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? I have a list of things like Phil would do when he's traveling. And then I'm like, that's what I would do. Because Phil's much better, solo planner, I guess. Like he does a lot of this. Ryan, like so you're going open to close. Are you doing like all by yourself? Like solo travel, you're not there with friends, right? It's just you and the parks, and you have no other obligations or people that you need to keep up with or people keeping up with you or that type of thing. Are you doing quick service meals every single meal? Are you thinking about, and forget about finances at this point, right? Where this is a fantasy trip. Like how are you chilling at the parks? How are you eating in this way?
So typically, I mean, if we want to kind of go how I did my Magic Kingdom day, which was essentially a open to close kind of day on this past trip, I got to the park just after opening. I didn't make it right for rope drop, but just after opening, and I went and did Pirates right away, and then Big Thunder, and just stayed in that kind of area. Did a few things. Then I got a snack. Then went over and rode. I think I did Space Mountain and People Mover after that.
Okay, it's like 10. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at this point, right? What are you getting a snack? What's your snack of choice at that time of day? No judgment.
I did check. Well, I did walk over first and check over at Gaston's Tavern to see what the line was like, and the line was far too long. That's usually where I head first to see how the line is like. But if the line is too long, then I'll just try to find something else. So for like this trip, I went over to and just got a Rice Krispie treat from Storybook Circus.
Okay. Very nice.
Big top treats there. And so then, I rode some more rides, and then I did see like Phil. I try to have like whether it's a tour or something else. And on this trip, I actually booked the Capture Your Moment photo pass session.
Oh, we were going to do that if our trip wasn't canceled. How was that? Tell us all about it.
That actually, I thought it was fantastic. I booked it before the price increased, but even with the price increase, I'd still do it again. So I think they give you like essentially two photo pass. One person's taking the photos, but they give you two like photo pass people. And they'll take you to multiple locations. They set up so many different shots for you and all that. And I did it because with the race medals, I took photos with my medals and stuff. So that was how I set that up. And then so then after that, then I took a kind of a midday break and went over to Geyser Point and grabbed like a late lunch there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Hung out there for a while.
Phil, I want to interrupt. This is because I never go down by myself, so my fantasy doesn't even realize that I could be nimble enough to just go to another resort and have a meal at a place that I haven't been to before that I would want to go to and check it out. Because that doesn't even register in my brain. I'm like, I can eat here because it's quick and easy, not like because I can pack up 3 kids in Hustle somewhere. Very good. Okay, I'm filing this away, Ryan. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead. Geyser Point. Go ahead.
Good. Yeah, so then I hung out at Geyser Point for a good hour or two, and then headed back into the park and did some more rides and just kind of took it easy until fireworks and watched fireworks, and that was my day.
I love that. Now, as you're touring, how do you determine what ride to go on next? Are you filing away? I mean, obviously you know the parks like the back of your hand. Are you using a Lines app to like figure out what are you meandering around? Are you backtracking quite a bit, or like what is your method of madness?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just go wherever. I'm not I don't have, like I don't go left or right and just go around. So I do use the Touring Plans Lines app.
Same.
And I obviously then you have My Disney Experience as well. Just checking things, seeing how things compare. I typically, if something's over an hour, I'm typically not going to wait for it. But if it's right around that hour mark, it depends. Like for Space Mountain, it was an hour wait. I did get in line and ended up being about 45 minutes, so shorter than posted. So that worked out, that kind of thing. So
very nice. Phil put down a note here about your meals. So like to me that's an interesting question. Are you eating like normal, or like are you not eating as normal because you're running 1,000 miles while you're down there and you got to watch your calorie? I don't know. Maybe you need more calories. I have no idea.
So I guess it depends. I actually had 3 ADRs previously booked for this trip, and I didn't go to any of them. I ended up canceling all 3, just because that's just because the flexibility of being by myself, it just kind of worked out where it's like one night, instead of going to dinner by myself, I went to dinner with friends. So it just kind of, played it by ear.
I did the same thing with a family of 5. But like you have to do that when you go to Disney. You have like people. There might be some crazy people out there, but like, how dare you hold a reservation and not use it? Type of people. Like, no, you need to take it and keep it.
Yep.
Because you never know that, because Disney forces you to do that, right? So for those that are out there that you're like, I don't like it. I never understood why people in the good old days of the dining plan and in ADRs at 60 days. I mean, you're still doing that to some degree. They're like, I don't know what I want to eat, and I hate Disney. Like, just pick something that sounds good, right? Yeah. And keep it. And you cancel it the day before or whatever. You're not hurting anybody. Don't feel bad about taking, because Disney forces you to do that because they don't want to keep enough open tables so you can walk up and take something. Take the ADR and don't feel guilty about it. Sorry, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. People get complaining about,
well,
or
they have
feel bad about
it. They have the walk-up wait list now too, so people will get that table. Don't worry about it.
Well, yes, but like it'd be nice if the norm was you could walk up and get a table versus having to get an ADR. But Disney forces you to get ADR. That's yes, you could probably get but
no, I just meant like if you felt like, oh, I'm taking up this spot and now somebody who really wanted this won't get to eat here. I was just saying that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about that. Somebody who wants to eat there will take your table if you cancel.
Maybe. I mean, they're all filled anyway, so right. Somebody's going to get food served to them.
Yeah.
How are the crowds, Ryan?
It's spring break time, so obviously the parks are packed. I didn't feel like it was overwhelming. I didn't, it wasn't like I would say like Christmas or New Year's crowds, but it was crowded.
Okay, so I didn't look. It was like probably like a 7 or 8 on the crowd.
Yeah. So it was pretty much every day was right around a 7.
That makes sense. So before we move on to discussing the attractionality bracket, which I think is going awesomely, what were your overall thoughts on this trip? Is it par for the course? Something change your mind to the positive or the negative about Disney? How did the trip influence you, or is it just like, okay, this is another one, and then looking forward to the next?
I guess it's it's just another one, and looking forward to the next. I did stay at 2 new to me resorts this trip, so that was kind of new. I always like to mix in some new experiences wherever I can, and the resorts were pretty much the new spots for me.
Well, let me pause. Let me preface this because this is going to be our last segment on our DBC Recommends. DBC recommends the Crescent Lake Club, and you posted some cool links about some room things. So let's just skip our last segment, and we're going to plop it in here. Promote Crescent Lake Club, what it is, etc., and where they can find it, and then talk about your room reviews and some of the new experiences that you had.
Yeah. So, Crescent Lake Club is the travel agency I work for. It's also we have a blog. I'll post news items there, reviews, stuff like that. obviously, if you don't know, Crescent Lake is the lake that's kind of around where the Boardwalk, Yacht Club, Beach Club, Swan and Dolphin are. That's the Crescent Lake area. So that's kind of what we've formed ourselves after. So then with that, on our YouTube channel, I did upload some videos of room tours of both my Grandestino Tower room and then my Art of Animation Little Mermaid room. Those are the two rooms I stayed in. I absolutely love the Tower room. The Grandestino Tower was fantastic. I would 100% stay there again. Art of Animation, fine resort, obviously a value. I had no really complaints. It's just obviously a downgrade from something like the Tower. I wouldn't say no to staying there again, but it obviously wouldn't be my first choice either.
I haven't been to the I can't even say it. I haven't been to the tower at Coronado Springs. Last time I was there, they were just pouring the foundation back in 2017. I think I was there. Yeah. I've seen plenty of videos, whatever. It looks like an awesome place. I think I'd rather go there than the Riviera for whatever reasoning. I mean, that's based off zero experience and just watching YouTube videos. So that's pretty cool. What made you get the Little Mermaid room at the Art of Animation?
So I actually had I believe an All-Star Movies room booked, and I've stayed at all the All-Stars and I've stayed at Pop Century before, but I've never stayed at Art of Animation. So that is why I kind of wanted to just cross Art of Animation off my list.
Okay.
And say I had stayed there. So that's kind of why I did that.
Okay, very cool. And so what was your overall take of, because I think a lot of people with families end up at Art of Animation because it's on par or slightly less expensive than moderates. I was looking into staying there only because they have a family suite to fit 6 at that point. And I've never been there, so my initial take, it's just a concrete tower, a concrete compound, and they've got a big pool, which is nice, but it doesn't feel, I don't know, like resorty enough. That's my wife's initial take when she watches it. So is that a good take, or am I completely wrong?
So I'd say the one thing about Art of Animation, the vast majority of those rooms are family suites, whereas they have one small section, which is what I stayed in, the Little Mermaid rooms. Those are all just standard rooms. But the vast majority of the other 3 sections are all family suites. And much like the other values, the Little Mermaid rooms are, you enter from the outside, kind of motel style type thing. But the difference with the family suites compared to the other values is they actually have indoor, like the rooms are, you enter from the inside. So like, other like the deluxe hotels and stuff like that. So that's, I guess, kind of the advantage of the family suites is you're not in that motel style, I guess.
Phil, do you prefer the outdoor entry or the indoor entry? I prefer the outdoor when I'm there at Disney, to be honest with you.
Neither one really bothers me. Or like I have a huge preference. I do think, like, especially if you're going to pay for a deluxe and stuff, I think part of it is, having like that balcony space and stuff like that, which you kind of need the interior doorways to accommodate. Sometimes I know staying, like when we were at Caribbean Beach or something, you have people like going by your windows and stuff like that. Sure. So it's like, it's just a little less relaxing, I guess. But like a lot of times a Disney trip isn't too relaxing anyway. So I don't think it bothers me too much.
I mean, this, because I think, I'm trying to think, but I don't think I've ever stayed in a hotel where I entered from the inside on Disney property, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think, because no, no, even when I stayed at Old Key West, it was an outdoor entry. I kind of like having you walking through property. To me, it feels like you're walking through property and you walk right into your room. It's like you're walking through the front door of your house. That's how I kind of like think about it in my head. And when you walk indoors and you walk in, it's like you're staying at a hotel. To me, so it kind of breaks that. I don't know. There's some boundary there. I might be talking out of my butt.
It does feel. I definitely think it makes me think more like a family vacation, like you're up in the Catskills of New York, or you're like somewhere just in Florida, like staying at a hotel or like a motel, versus like a business trip where you're staying at like a Marriott or whatever, and you go through the lobby and stuff like that. So I do. It does feel kind of more like old school family vacation-y when it's an exterior door.
All right. Well, last question I have for you, Ryan, before we move to the attractionality bracket is: did this trip bolster your faith in Disney and the direction they're going? Did it diminish it, or did it basically stay status quo and you're no change, basically? Just an overall feeling and gut feeling, like where are you at?
I would say, for me overall, I would say this trip was better than my January trip in that I feel better. Like I'm wanting to go back again. Like after January, I was a little more negative. I wasn't as urgent to go back maybe, but now it's like, especially now, but I think too, because I don't have anything on the books now. Like normally I'm always have something planned. And so now after this one, I don't have anything planned. So it's more that, and I don't have something to look forward to. So I'm kind of looking for that, but I don't think nothing really took away from, or I'm not any more negative, and I'm not really any more positive either, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's good, right? I mean, like we shouldn't before the pandemic, every time we went to Disney, there was no arrows up or arrows down. It's just like, we love Disney. Yeah. We can't wait to go back. And that was basically the whole take, right? Like, it's just, we can't wait till we come back. So, yes, the show's not all about negativity as much as it might seem. But, like, you know, like we started off the show, there's a lot of vibes out there that are either ultra positive or ultra negative. And there's very little even keel, right, in the Diz community, because everybody's looking for something to either love or hate. Mm-hmm. And now everybody's like, everybody just chill. It's awesome. It's still fun. Like, you get your money's worth. It's more expensive, but what isn't these days? And go for it. All right, Phil.
I do think over time, like, and now that Ryan's been there a few times since Genie Plus started, I feel like people just get more used to it and kind of figuring out how it works for them versus feeling like, oh, I have to pay this money. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Like, it's just a burden. And it's like, well, you can do that. Or like once you get used to using it, you start learning how to maximize it, or you figure out like, we don't need it for this, or at least we don't need it for all the parks, or so I think I feel like there's been a lot of negativity around Genie Plus, and I'm hoping over time that lessens as people get more used to it.
I think the only negativity with Genie Plus is just more cost to your trip. Yeah. That's the only like, I think people will agree that it's functional, it works, but like I think once the rush to get to Disney kind of starts going back down to not madness, but down to like craziness that normally is, right? Like whatever differential you want to put it at, it's that we said this before, Phil. They're going to start offering it in packages. Get Disney Plus with all your days at the parks or whatever. Instead of offering dining plan or room discounts, you get Disney Plus, Genie Plus.
Genie Plus.
I think people are going to start enjoying it more when it's not an extra, like for us, you and I, Phil, it's an extra, what is it, $15, $60, $75 a day, right? Yeah, so anyway, Phil, I think I've been talking a lot already, as usual. Not that that's anything different, but why don't you lead us through the Tractionality bracket?
Yeah, first, just as a reminder of our social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel at the DBC Pod, and of course the Discord server. Going through the Attractionality, we talked about it last time just to introduce it, but we have had a number of votes throughout the past week or so, and we've just named the final four in each of the four brackets, or at least the last bracket has about 15 more minutes of voting, but I don't think enough votes will come through.
Remind everybody about the brackets.
Yeah, so the first bracket is what we're calling the classics, and for each one, it basically just got seeded by 15 movies because there's now been 60 movies out. One got a bye in each round. But rather than trying to like force things like, oh, this is a Renaissance movie, whatever, they just said, okay, here's the first 15, the next 15, the next 15. Mm-hmm. So what we're calling the classics, which covered from 1937 to 1955, our final four is that Cinderella beat Lady and the Tramp.
Well, let's go one by one. Let's go one by one. So you said Cinderella and Lady and the Tramp.
Yep.
Cinderella won. Anybody disagree with that?
No.
I think that's an obvious answer. So let's do it one by one, Phil, and get some takes off it. We can do it quickly, I think.
Yeah. So the next one, Alice in Wonderland defeated Dumbo, which is definitely the direction I would go. But I know Dumbo does have its fans.
Ryan, do you think that should have been closer or what?
I chose Dumbo. I'm more of a fan of Dumbo than I am Alice.
See, I agree with this one. Like, I voted for Alice, but I thought it would be closer. That's my only take.
The next one is Peter Pan defeated Bambi.
I don't think that shocks anybody.
No.
And then the next one is that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs defeated Pinocchio.
I'm just surprised that it was not closer either, because these are all classics, right? But those are two strong classics, I should say.
Yeah, I actually voted for Pinocchio.
I did too.
I just think it's like the most beautiful handmade animation movie Disney's ever done. So I'd like to give it some credit, but obviously there's a lot of historical context for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So the next region is the throwback region, which covers 1959 to 1991.
It's a weird delineation, I thought. But
yeah, this was one of the areas where they had to get the 15 movies versus otherwise the segments would have different number of movies. But in the first bracket, Beauty and the Beast defeated The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
That's unfair. It's an unfair fight.
Although I saw some people sad about that there's definitely some Pooh fans out there. But
hey, look, both are great movies, right?
Yeah,
Winnie the Pooh, that was like a sick day movie for me growing up. Like I loved Winnie the Pooh growing up, but you can't compete with Beauty and the Beast. I'm sorry, you can't.
The next one was 101 Dalmatians defeated The Jungle Book.
See, what did you vote for, Ryan?
I don't remember at this point, but that's a tough one for me though. Between those two, I do love both films. If I have to try to think of what I did, I may have gone Jungle Book. I do love the music from that one. So,
see, I voted for Jungle Book, but then again, if it wasn't for 101 Dalmatians, we wouldn't have gotten Cruella, which was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was close. It was 23-15.
Yeah, that one's pretty close. I voted for 101 Dalmatians. I'm just not as huge on the Jungle Book as other people are. I mean, it's fine, but I think the 101 Dalmatians is a better story and that sort of thing. Next one, Sleeping Beauty defeated The Sword and the Stone. I think that's probably not too surprising.
Nope.
And in the last one, which was the most lopsided vote, The Little Mermaid defeated The Aristocats.
Now, did Adam take out his vote on these? As you snapshotted these, or no?
I don't think he has for the last one, at least, because it's still active, but
right.
I thought for the others he did.
2 people voted for Aristocrats over The Little Mermaid. I'm just shocked. Ryan, are you one of those 2 people?
I am not.
Okay, just checking. Just checking. I don't, but I think that's an obvious win there.
Yeah, I think my family, actually, my kids especially, love the Aristocats. They went through a period where they were watching that like almost daily, but I still think they would have voted for a Little Mermaid over. Yeah. It's more of a pro Little Mermaid than anti.
Little Mermaid turned the studios around. I mean, come on, you can't. It's classic as Snow White at this point.
Yep. The Renaissance region, which covers 1992 to 2005, we had The Lion King defeated Tarzan.
I want to say, though, there are some Tarzan stands in Discord, which amazed me. I had no idea there was a contingent of Tarzan fans that
specifically for the soundtrack, I think.
Well, yes, alluding to the earlier comment about the jokes. Yeah, I had no idea. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm glad this, not as popular movie has its like uber fans. It's great.
Then in one of our closest votes so far, Mulan defeated Pocahontas, but only by 3 votes.
I don't know what to think about this one. I have no comment. I mean, it's close, but I don't know why it's close. Other than maybe people just closed their eyes and voted. Ryan, do you have a strong opinion on either direction?
No, I enjoy both films. I believe I voted for Mulan. I think it's more just, again, because of the music. I like the music in that film better. So
I voted for Pocahontas because my daughters sung that song for about a month straight. Or that soundtrack, I should say.
Yeah. The next one, which was not close, Aladdin defeated The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I'm amazed only because I thought this would be as close as The Little Mermaid versus The Aristocrats. But apparently there's some Hunchback fans out there. So, all right, rock on.
And in the last one where I was a little upset by the vote was Lilo and Stitch defeated The Emperor's New Groove. And that's my thoughts are definitely pro Emperor's New Groove, not anti Lilo and Stitch. I think that's a fine movie, but I really love The Emperor's New Groove. So.
I close my eyes on this one. Ryan, do you have a strong opinion?
No, I do. I like both films again. I did go Lilo and Stitch because I feel like that one maybe tugs at your heartstrings a little bit more than Emperor's New Groove. So,
yep,
fair.
And in the last bracket, which we're calling the modern region, which covers 2006 through 2021, there is still, like I said, about 7 minutes of voting left, but I'm looking at the live votes right now, and unless a surge comes in, these will be the final votes. In what will probably be considered an upset by a number of people, Frozen 2 will defeat Frozen 1.
What's your hot take from that, Ryan?
I'm Team Frozen 2. Frozen 2 is a better film, so.
From a story structure point, I totally agree with you. When I watched that, I thought I was watching like an RPG role playing game, kind of like classic adventure story, right? I think the first movie had better. See, I don't know. I had to vote for Frozen because it's hard to vote for a sequel over the original, right?
Yeah.
But Frozen 2 had some really awesome songs in it. But I think Frozen 2 had more better songs, or whatever, however you say that. But I think the peak, like the songs from Frozen, the 1 or 2 were better than anything from Frozen 2. Right, I think the depth of the soundtrack from Frozen 2 was better than the depth of, if you catch my drift, right?
Yeah.
I still voted for Frozen though. Phil, what did you vote for this one?
So it's funny. I actually think the opposite of the soundtracks. I think there's a couple great songs on Frozen 2. But I think if I'm listening to the entire soundtrack, I'd probably listen to Frozen.
Okay.
Frozen 2. But I voted for Frozen. I just think that it's a tighter story. I feel like Frozen 2 gets a little convoluted and they're forcing too many characters, some of the old ones and the new ones and stuff. I think it's a great movie. And I think the fact that we're even having this debate is a testament to how good it is as a sequel. Because most sequels aren't nearly as good as the original. So
I was like really intrigued that they were like, is this the first time Disney's put out a sequel for one of their animated movies that wasn't straight to like VHS or quote unquote streaming? Is this the first time they've done that?
I think technically the first one is The Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay. But I mean, this one made another $1 billion,
Yeah.
right?
This was slightly more successful than the Rescuers.
But like, to me, I compare the actual technical animation of both films. Like, I still think Frozen 2 had some of the best animation since then, right? There's been, Encanto was great animation. Raya and Moana since Frozen 2, right?
Yep.
I still think Frozen 2 had better animation than all three of those movies. From a, just, not talking about, like, you know, one is colorful, one is not, but just from, like, a technical, like, just the smoothness and just the feel of everything. I think the animation was, like, amazing. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
So next one, not nearly as close. Tangled will take down The Princess and the Frog.
Maybe Tangled should have replaced Splash instead. I'm just saying.
It already has bathrooms, I guess.
I guess, whatever. Plenty of splashing going over there.
Then one that it's an interesting one just because it's the most recent of the movies. Encanto is fairly handily going to beat Zootopia.
I'm surprised Zootopia got votes. Ryan, you must be 10 of them, right?
No, I went on Encanto. No, I do like Zootopia as a film. I just like Encanto more.
In case everybody's wondering, I always tease Ryan that we're going to have Zootopia in Animal Kingdom, which is his favorite park, and he always gets angry. In a joking way, of course. No, Zootopia's great. It has a lot of gags. It's funny, right? But for me to be a Disney movie, right, or Disney animated movie, it's got to have a soundtrack that you can listen to, right? Like any movie. That's why Raya wasn't.
Yeah.
Raya was a great movie, but I'll never watch it again because it didn't. It doesn't spark that feeling or emotion because there's no soundtrack to it, right? So that's why Encanto wins hands down.
And then the last one, which will be the biggest blowout we've had so far, because I do still think the one vote for the other movie is a placeholder at this point. Moana will take down Big Hero 6.
I mean, that's obvious, right? At this point.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I was having to defend Big Hero 6 just because I enjoy. I mean, I still voted for Moana. It's better than Big Hero 6, but I think Big Hero 6 is really fun.
I agree.
It's a fun movie. I didn't know it was a Disney movie for a very long time, to be honest with you. I was like...
Yeah, it's actually a Marvel product.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a Marvel comic book that they made into a movie. So maybe they could put Big Hero 6 in Hollywood Studios.
We watched as a family like a year and a half ago, I think. And it's a great movie. It's fun. It can't compare to like... it'd be interesting to see if we track all the winners or the winners from each bracket and compare them to like soundtrack sales. How that compares to like which ones won. Whoever has the more popular soundtrack is usually seems like it's going to be the winner for a lot of these
definitely
shows.
I mean, discussing the soundtracks, I feel like we've been talking about the soundtracks as much as we've been talking about the films themselves. So that's it. So I think not too many close votes in this round, but I think next round is going to get
painful.
It's going to get painful. Yeah,
yes, for sure. Phil, I think we're going to save.
Yep.
Hold on. Ryan, do you have any other comments? I'm going to give you space here in case you've been very pleasantly. I know it feels like you're holding something back. I keep watching. You're rocking back and forth like you have something. I'm giving you space.
Come on, it's hot take time with Ryan.
No, I don't really have anything. No.
Okay, cool. We had like 4 different pieces. I was excited to talk to you about these things because Ryan, if you don't remember, was the king of news and rumor. Has it been 2 years, Phil?
Yeah,
it's been 2 years.
Yep.
That I wanted to talk about some of these news and rumor things, but we're at the hour mark, and people usually get angry when we go over an hour. Yep. The one thing I do want to bring up is I saw this on WDW Magic. There was a rumor going around that there's some talks, no plans, but talks of redos for some of the buzz rides at the parks if the movie does well. Ryan, what is your take on those? We'll get your take on that.
Well, it seems to have spawned from a fake email from someone that sent it to WTWNT. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do, and if depending on how well the film does, of course, because it always has to depend on sales. But I do think, especially the Magic Kingdom one, the Buzz Lightyear ride needs an update.
Yeah.
100% agree with you. I mean, if this movie comes out and it does, let me ask you this. Instead of saying a number, I'm going to ask you a number, Ryan. How much money does the Buzz Lightyear movie have to do for them to start considering redoing a ride and like boosting up the Buzz Lightyear property or IP?
Well,
does it have to do a B? A billion?
No, I don't think so. I would say right around the 750 to 800 million mark. So just under that billion. And it's hard too because Buzz Lightyear is such a, it's a character that's already exists. It's not something new. So I guess that's harder to kind of, give a metric on, what they really need to hit.
But it has. I think it's fairly easy to give. I mean, I don't know what the number is. If I had to guess, I would say 800 million because that tells you that it's a super popular movie in today's pandemic world. And by the time it comes out, there's probably going to be more billion-dollar movies and stuff like that with Marvel and everybody else. But Buzz Lightyear is an old property, right? Like it's been around for 20-something years at this point, right? Almost 30 years. And it's an existing. It's like so you're not reintroducing your character, but you're putting all this effort to put out a movie based on an old property. Is it going to fall like a dud because no one cares about Toy Story anymore? I mean, I don't think that's the case, but is it going to do that, or is it going to spark some kind of love for the character where it's going to enter the cultural zeitgeist again, and like a whole new generation of people care about that character again? My kids love Toy Story, right? But they're not like that wasn't their movie because they've all watched it as older movies type of thing, right? So I think 2 things. They're tied together. If it does 800 million plus, and I think that's an excellent number, Ryan, that you picked out. Phil, do you agree with that number?
That sounds about right. I think it's an interesting one because it is part of a larger property. Like obviously they're already using Toy Story like everywhere. Now this is obviously a little bit different since it's like the real person, not the toy and stuff like that. So it's not like you could just add it to Toy Story Land or something. But 800 sounds about right. I don't think it needs the billion, especially if it's like a fairly easy redo for a ride that needs it. I don't know if they need as much to justify it. I do think for like a brand new property, it probably needs that $1 billion mark.
I think a redo in Toy Story Land would be excellent because you're going to have Tron. That's by the time they get to it, Tron's going to be maybe a year or two old at that point, if it's ever finished. And that was one of our other topics, by the way. We'll talk about that next week. But I think the real life Buzz fits really well into Toy Story Land, right? Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland, yeah.
Toy Story Land's the cartoon version.
Exactly.
Tomorrowland is the real version, or whatever you want to say. Right?
Yeah, it does seem like it could be a good fit, and it's Disney, so it'd probably cost them $200 million anyway. But it shouldn't be like a major expenditure to do. So
you just got to redo all the sets, right? And update maybe the technology on the guns and stuff like that. But you're not no new building, no new track system, et cetera, et cetera. I think they could do an excellent job. Okay, that being said, we're going to talk about all sorts of news and rumors next week. And Ryan, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Phil, anything else that I forgot? Did I forget anything?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Remember to check out Ryan's Crescent Lake Club room reviews on YouTube. We'll put the links out on social media for you guys to follow through. With that being said, everybody have a great week, and we'll catch you guys next time. Take care, everybody.